And you are very welcome. This is The Beautiful Truth with Fintan Dunne for irishfirstmothers.com. Thanks for joining me. You know, I'm shocked, as many people are, by the developments in the Commission of Investigation into Mother and Baby Homes and the announcement of a 1-year delay and suspicions by many that that's going to turn into further delay. To react to that news, I'm joined on the line now by Derek Leinster of the Bethany Survivors group, and that's one of the groups which has been affected by this decision by the government. Derek, thanks very much for joining me.
Well, thank you very much, Fintan, for giving us the opportunity, because we don't get much of that in the Irish media, I might tell you.
Okay, well, you know, we've experienced that ourselves as well. But, you know, I'm sure it must have been heartbreaking for yourself and others in the group to have that news come at you out of the blue of the latest delay.
It is, because you got to, and please understand, that we have been opposed to this commission in the first place, because for the Bethany Home Survivors, few people that Protestant home that is left, we've made the case. We gave the commission in 2015 the case with the backup to our case, which is undisputable. But the trouble is, there's nobody in the civil servants, and there's no ministers, or there's no Taoiseachs in Ireland that ever has taken the time to read the stuff. They simply just rule it out of hand as if we don't exist. There are two ministers in the previous situation to do with the 2002 readdress simply lied to the Dáil to say that there was no connection with the government running the Bethany Home and that there was no documents to substantiate that. That is a lie. They knew that was a lie because I sent them the documents that they said didn't exist. And anybody that thinks that I'm lying about that, they've only got to ask for the documents and I'll supply them.
Have you spoken with other members of the group, and what is their reaction to the news?
Every group is obviously sick. But you see, from our point of view, I never wanted the commission in the first place, because if they were to sit for 1,000 years, they wouldn't be able to give us any more information than what we've given them now. I mean, they never found one child that was dead for our research. We have to do all that ourselves.
Well, this is your point then, that you feel that in fact the Commission's redundant here, and that you've done a damn good job of researching and uncovering and really establishing the events which went on yourselves.
Yes, not only did we find the children that was left starved to death in a good many cases, but we also found the mothers, some mothers. So we know that one mother, she died in the Bethany Home and she took 36 hours to die. She bled to death. And when she was taken back to Galway, her little daughter that was born 5 weeks before had died, and she's buried in an unmarked grave in Mount Jerome. So we can not just tell you why they died, where they died, we can also even tell you where their mothers died and where they are buried. So there's no research in Ireland that has done a more comprehensive research than what we have, and not funded by the state, because we're Protestants. That doesn't happen for Protestant people in Ireland. You have to be a Catholic, and you would have to be a Catholic to be a sufferer. They can't accept that we suffered. And the Protestants have always believed, the church leaders, that this is a Catholic issue. We'll keep out of this and keep our heads down and let them get on with it. And they abandoned us just like the government.
You spoke there of mothers and the what befell them as well. And, you know, born in 1941, Derek, you were a war baby in a way. And while a genocide was playing out across Europe, in Ireland, your mother found herself victim of an Irish genocide, which was being waged against women such as her.
We were part of a mini Holocaust.
That was your Holocaust.
That people don't want to talk about. You see, we're in between both scenarios. The government don't want to know about us, and our own church leaders don't want to know about us. So we've got no chance.
Yeah.
We desperately need legal representation to be able to get the protection of the Irish courts, as they now have incorporated the European human rights in 2003 as part of their law. So we want to be able to get the protection of the Irish courts like our fellow citizens have been able to do in 2002. They had free legal aid. We didn't get anything. We've had no help from nowhere.
Yes. Well, you know, that your conclusions there and your resort to law to try and vindicate your rights is something that's occurring to many other survivor groups as well, Derek. A feeling that really it is only in the courts that we're going to be able to get timely justice and also equitable justice. Otherwise, it's likely to be very much delayed, crumbs from the table, and too late for many people.
Well, you see, the big problem we've got now is it's a question of blame. Everybody's running. They don't want to be seen to have blame in this. Mm-hmm. The civil servants know they mucked up in 2002 by not making sure that the Bethany Home, that Protestant people were going to get justice as well. Those people who are still living and suffering with their health, and now a lot of these places, they can't get cover for this, they can't get private cover for the other. So therefore they suffer because they can't afford to go private. They can't afford, I know people that can't afford to put a roof on their home. I know people that are suffering because they can't go and get dentist treatment.
Give us a little insight, if you would, for those who aren't familiar with the situation that you found yourself in. Your mother would have been confined to such a home. What physical conditions did you experience as a child, and did she experience in that home?
All right, I was born in the Bethany Home. But first and foremost, before I went to the Bethany Home, my mother, before she went to the home, she would have been advised by the local vicar to my mother's mother to get her down to the Bethany Home. She'll have to spend 4 months in the Bethany Home before I'm due, mm-hmm. and then 4.5 months after I was born. That was her punishment for getting pregnant outside marriage in the first place. Mm-hmm. After that, she could go. So at 7.5 months, I was left in the Bethany Home, abandoned by my mother and my families because of the discrimination and sectarianism that was going on publicly then, but today, same thing going on, but more quietly done by civil servants and ministers. Mm-hmm. They were concerned because my father was a Catholic and my mother was a Protestant. Mm-hmm. So that couldn't happen. They couldn't get married. So I had to be dumped. And dumped I was. Like many, many thousands. And as we say, we've now known, we've come across hundreds of them who died in these Protestant-run homes and died in private homes. What people don't understand or have any idea is the amount of nursed out children that died from these homes. Because what they done, they got full very quick. So they nursed out the children to other Protestant families, and they got 15 shillings a week to do that. But what most of the people who took these children in was only interested in the 15 shillings. They actually watched them die. And they actually watched me die in the Bethany Home.
That's something that, people might be surprised. I know Tuam is infamous around the world now for the fact that infants were discarded unclothed in a septic tank. But surely the conditions in which you were by the age of 3 years old were grotesque and indicated astonishing neglect. Concentration camp level neglect.
Well, the British medical people mm-hmm. reckon for me to be in the state that I was at 3 years of age, I would have to be abandoned on a manure heap. I was interviewed by Dr. Riley, the minister for health, and he asked me if he could see a piece of paper that I had, which I gave it to him, but at the same time I pulled out of my wallet a piece of paper which told him what diseases I was suffered with as a child and was in the Cork Street Isolation Hospital. He said, "Did you have these 4 things together?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, you must have been made of very tough stuff." I said, well, you would know that as a doctor, I said, and you would also know that as parents, because you see, the government was my parents. I was abandoned. I was an orphan. There was nobody in the world cared for me one jot from the day my mother walked out of the Bethany home. I was on my own. And he said that, I said to him that you would know that the government were very poor parents to have a child get into such a state as that. Because you see, it didn't matter how bad, that was another thing, you see, these officials used to tell me, oh, well, you know, the Bethany home has got nothing to do with the government. It was privately run home. And I said, hang on a minute, I said. If they were making sausage meat out of babies, would that have nothing to do with the government in the Bethany home? I'm still waiting for an answer.
Yes, it's an appalling. It's an appalling track record. But in your own case, I mean, there was a continuation of failing to support you appropriately.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What was
I
your?
was put into a defunct family. After surviving that, they put me in with a defunct family in Wicklow who couldn't look after themselves, and I ended up growing up in starvation, in rags, and uneducated. But you see, and I'm sorry I have to keep coming back to this. Now, if I had been a Catholic, when the Catholic, there was the Garda came up and wanted to know why I wasn't at school, and my poor foster mother, before she died with TB, pointed to the rags I was in. She said, how can I send him to school in that? And he walked down, touching his hat, going down the Card Road from my old aunt's fostering place where I stopped a time in Wicklow, County Wicklow, Ireland. But now, if I hadn't been a Catholic, I would have had a Black Maria arrived, and I'd have been gone, because I hadn't been before the court. And I'd been in one of the Artane or whatever else they used to put them according to the age. But you see, because I was a Protestant, there was a Protestant field and a Catholic field, and the police couldn't go into the Protestant field. He just had to walk away and forget about it, and that's what happened. And you see, there's no national records of schools of the Church of Ireland held by the state. They were actually held by the schools, and when the schools run down because there was nobody else going to them, they were put into the trash bins and got dumped. I've seen them myself when I went back to Dungastown in the late 60s. The roll call books that they had for the Dungastown school was in the coal house. Unfortunately, I didn't have this good sense to pick them up at the time, because that was, was gold dust to have that type of history, and to see that going into a dustbin. What a disgrace. And that's what they think. So if you go to, that's what they kept saying to me, you see, when I first started in the 2000s, that with getting hold of the governments, they would say, well, look, there's no records, you don't exist. I lived in Ireland till I was 18 and just over 18 years of age, and there was no records that I ever was in Ireland, as far as the government was prepared to tell me, unless they went into the deep vaults of the hidden archives of the mess that they had. And it's not nice, when you're getting on towards a pensioner, to be told that you didn't bloody exist in a country that you loved, and the only country that you ever cared about. I mean, what sort of people are they? They seem to be animals.
Well, it's something that's been written. Animals. It's something that's been written about a great deal. The attitude of the Irish state bureaucratic structure to what you call the normal, legal liabilities of a state. States make mistakes and have to own up for them. But in their case, they view you as the enemy. This has come across so many times, that you're viewed as a parasite who wants to take good money that should be going to good things for your awful litigation and recompense. It's an astonishing attitude. It's just in their DNA, Derek. And I apologise to you on behalf of the Irish people for the savage manner in which your community has been treated by this government, who could, with merely small change, have resolved this matter and healed this historic injustice.
Well, they're happy to spend millions of pounds on bones and DNA. Now, you see, all of that history is fine and should be done, and rightly so. But, you have to put living people first. The people that are living in great poverty, there's loads of survivors, both Catholic and Protestant, who are in great suffering from poverty. Funny enough, a lot of people don't know about it, because these people are proud people, and they haven't come forward, they haven't said, they've suffered in that misery. You see, at the end of the day, that shouldn't happen when you're spending money on stuff that can wait. DNA can wait, the bones can wait, and at the end of the day, when they're finished their research, they won't be much further than they are today, after spending millions of pounds and building people's hopes up. You see, they've run away with themselves when they found these death certificates. We've gone through thousands of death certificates. That's only part of the research. You have to go through, and we keep telling them, but they don't listen. They don't listen to nothing. They think they know it all. We had to go through burial books, undertakers' books, doctors' books. You know, the records of these historic books, you can't do it without going through all of these channels properly. And at the end of the day, there's no good of them saying, oh, they might be over here, they might be over there. What we've done, we've given them and put them on the stone and given them a number. Every child that we found, you'll find the mass grave plot, and then you'll find the plot within the mass grave plot, a number for the individual child that was dumped in that home. Now, when you think about it, you're talking about cesspits. One day it's cesspits and one day it's chambers in Tuam, and another day it's in the grounds. Well, now we have all that tied down where it's just one thing. We'll give you the exact spot where they are buried, and that has been done without the government giving us one penny or without us bringing in one digger. We've done it a different way. But we don't get any recognition for that, by the way. We've told the government, I've sent all my information and all the research that I've done to the government, plus I've also sent it to the Garda. Because, you know, if there was a war on today, these people would have been tried for war crimes against children. They watched me die, and if they had took action at me, I would never have been so ill. But what they did, they just watched me die, and in the end they said, look, we don't have him die on here, get him to the, to the fever hospital quick. But they fought to save my life, where in the Bethany Home, they just watched me die, and then sent me, as I was almost dead, to the Cork Street Isolation Hospital. So I was going to die under a different address. And you see, a lot of these children have died in different addresses. They haven't died in the homes, all of them. They've died in private homes. They've died all over the place, in hospitals. And you've got vicars, Church of Ireland vicars, running around, picking them up from the morgues in cars and taking them to the Mount Jerome Cemetery, and also taking them to the undertakers to be dealt with. And we're not talking about babies, we're talking about also teenagers. We're also talking about children who died because their mothers didn't have milk, or their mothers had died whilst they was giving birth or whatever. And they allowed those children die because they didn't have breast milk. Now, can you ever believe in Ireland in the 40s and 50s could be so uncivilized, and them going around the world telling all the Africans and Asians how they should live under the Christian Catholic Church, etc., and Protestant. And here they are, they've got children in Ireland dying because they weren't having breastfeed. When if you had a pup or a dog or a rabbit or a rat, you'd have fed it with milk with a tit on a bottle. But they just watched them die because they had no value. As far as they were concerned, they had no value. And it wasn't something that people didn't know about, because there's court cases about it. The police knew, solicitors knew, the church knew, and the ministers of the departments knew. Everybody knew, but nobody wanted to worry about it. They didn't care about it. And in Dublin, you imagine the amount of children was being taken to Mount Jerome and Dean's Grange in broad daylight and being dumped in mass holes in the ground and being buried with paupers and alcoholics, innocent children. I can't believe it. It gives me nightmares when I think about it. You see, I've been used to, in England, when a child dies like that, an unwanted pauper child, it's buried at the back of the churchyard from the wall out. And they're all children buried in the same area. I can't believe that they bury children with drunken adults and layabouts and good-for-nothings as well as anybody else in paupers' graves. It's unbelievable to think that ever happened. And I just feel such shame being Irish for that, because I've always loved my country and I always wanted my country to be the best.
During these times that we're talking about here, and these incarcerations in mother and baby homes went on into the 90s, there was an organisation called the Legion of Mary, founded by Frank Duff. And this was a lay Catholic organisation of community care. And they would care for people on the streets, they would care for people who were impoverished, and they provided basic human care. It was a fine organisation. And one of the things they did was they set up such single mothers in homes where, in fact, they had creche facilities where some of the mothers could care for the children while others went out and worked. This was a humane and truly Christian regimen which was operated by the Legion of Mary, and one which the fascists in the Irish state and church looked down their noses on and set about with a vengeance of implementing a genocidal alternative. It didn't have to be this way. The Irish people are good-hearted at their heart. This is a bureaucracy and institutional structure which is at fault here.
Absolutely. But you see, I think, Fintan, what you say about standing together, it's got to be about living survivors. And we should be, as a group of living survivors, as a one, fighting for the one purpose. And that's the only way we can win. Now, if we go any other way, we will never win. We might as well accept that. That's not going to be possible. It has to be about living people. And anything to happen afterwards then can be dealt with as the historians wish in their own time. Because there's no historian can rush. They wouldn't know the meaning of the word. But as far as living survivors are concerned, there is a rush because time is very, very fast running out for a great many of people. And for the few that are left, it's the simple, it's the most direct and cost-saving way of doing it. I simply want to be treated the same way as the 40-odd thousand was in 2002. And don't forget, when you're talking about the Bethany Home as a survivor, you're talking about illegal adoptions, you're talking about children being sold. There was no different. That isn't justice.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely not. It is so disrespectful as well, and I fully support you in that, Derek. And thanks very much again for coming on and for all the work that you've done down the years. Take care, Derek.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, folks, that's it for this edition. I will be back with more very soon and more of the impact on all this on the victims of it. And I do hope that you can join me for that. But in the meantime, this has been Fintan Dunne reporting. Thanks for joining me, folks. See you soon.